All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the LVTV podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to you, coach and consultant, all about your mental and emotional health and your wellness, and all that's coming up with our very special guest here in just a second. Again, welcome to the LVTV podcast, where we talk all things content, clients, and cash flow for the profit and impact focused coaches and consultants. And today, you need to grab a pen and a paper and be prepared to get schooled by Dr. Curt. Dr. Curt, how you doing today, bro?
I'm well, bro. Thank you for having me, man. How you been?
Man, listen, life is good. Despite its challenges, life is good. It could be different, and even if it was, it will still be. I always tell people it's a great day to be alive. At the end of the day, it's a great day to be alive, whatever you're dealing with. So I'm excited, man, to talk to you. As people know me personally, that I am a mental health advocate, definitely emotional health and wellness, especially amongst men, black men, but more so just anybody who need it, because I don't believe that, health should have a skin color or a type or a class. So I'm excited about this conversation, just to let you know ahead of time. So I may have tons of questions, so please excuse me. So I want to jump straight into your Genesis story. We do this with each and every person who comes on to get a little bit of background. I want to know, where were you and what was going on in your world when the light bulb clicked and said, I need to be in this space, the mental, emotional, and wellness space? Where were you at? What was going on?
Good question. I actually... I crashed, right? I got into this space against my will.
Really?
I went, yes. My first professional endeavor was in education.
Okay.
I consider this to be a different form of education, but I actually got into this mental health space as a client, as a patient, right? So more than 10 years ago, somewhere around 11 or 12 years ago, I started to crash, bottom out. Started experiencing a high number of losses simultaneously. And although I had achieved some success by the mainstream standard of go lead a hood, go to college, go to graduate school, get married, buy the house, the cars, all of that.
Yeah.
I was ill-equipped for managing my emotional and mental health, right? And so I found myself becoming stressed in terms of my finances. I was in real estate at the time. That took a hit back in 2008.
Yep.
And so between 2008 and 2011, I had left education part-time, to go into real estate, and then the bottom fell out. But during that, I had landed some success and was able to change the history of my family, move my mother from Chicago to Atlanta, put her up, and do some good things for my family. But then my mother passed, right? So, and then I lost my marriage, and then my finances. And then in between of that, I temporarily lost who I was. Subsequently, I lost my dad, had to sit in jail for about 60 days and went through just a very tough time. And this wasn't that long ago. So we talking 10 years ago.
Right.
Now, mind you, I had some success, and then the bottom fell out. And so although I had been to a therapist in high school off and on, I find myself in a tough spot, right? So I went to see a therapist, and after about on my fifth therapist, I was about to give up on mental health, right? And on my fifth therapist, I promised a good friend of mine that this would be my last go round to see if someone could help me, right?
Yeah.
I still wasn't completely open. And so I had went to 4 previous when they all were black. But somehow I didn't make the connection, and it wasn't them. I just wasn't ready.
Right.
And so this fifth one was a white guy, right? And he really shocked it into place for me. So I walked in, I knew the drill. I sat down, and, he asked me what happened. And so for the next 40, 45 minutes, I went into the spiel. I shared my story. And at the end of it, he looked at me and he asked, and I never forget this question. He said, you ever thought about becoming a mental health practitioner, like a therapist? This is what the guy asked me in therapy as a client. And I sat back, white guy, middle-aged white guy. I said, dude, what? He said, no, seriously. He was like, you ever thought about becoming a therapist?
Yeah.
I said, stop playing. I flipped the script. I was like, look, man, you have no idea. I'm not here for career counseling. I'm not here to play. Shrink me, man. I gotta get stuff rolling. He said, no, seriously. He said, I've been doing this for 35 years. He said, I see black men all the time. I can't really reach them. I don't think the current mental health industry can reach them, but I think you can. He says, so if you take this on, if you take your healing journey on, I would say go back, and as you're healing, give back to men who look like you.
Yeah.
He says, so you're not clinically depressed. He said, you mad, you pissed, you angry, you're rageful, right?
Yeah.
You're disappointed. He said, but you ain't clinically depressed. You're a black man living in this country.
Yeah.
That's not clinical depression. That's a lot of other things.
Right.
And he says, so I'm not telling you to give up on therapy. Just don't come back to me. And find someone who looks like you. And better yet, become the person you're looking for.
Man.
I left out his office, man. I was pissed. I was like, I'm done. I'm completely done. I figured out, right?
Yeah.
3 days later, now I had lost everything. I was sleeping in my buddy's basement because I had thought I had lost my home. 3 days later, I just felt the lightness come. Like the burden lifted. I started really feeling differently. And I checked in with myself. I was like, I think he may be on to something. And at the time, I had started a doctoral program years before and I had quit. And so because I had nothing else going on, I jumped back into a program and I let this be my healing journey. And I really developed, systems and support and tools and strategies to heal myself, which is an ongoing journey, and go into a second career where I'm able to not only share healing space with black men who look like me, but to really be an advocate with lived experiences of coming from a point where I was completely at a point where I was like, man, I end it all. Right? Wow. So that's pretty much my story. And we're not talking like 20 or 30 years. Yeah. We're talking 10, 11 years.
Right. Obama was in office.
Right. Hey, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother issue, the Obama administration. But you're absolutely right.
Dude, I know we can't be on here too long, but I have so many questions. But we're gonna get into the meat of the conversation.
Take all the time you need, man. I got the rest of the evening blocked off, bro. You good?
Listen, wow. So here's the question I do have. So when you made this transition, and because we always hear, started from the bottom, now we hear story, but the in between, what were some of the challenges you had from that moment where he told you to start your journey on your own or go get some help, but also become an advocate? Like, what were some of the moments that just stick out? Like, wow, this was a moment for me until you became the Dr. Curt that you are today. What was one of those moments where you was like, good or bad? Like, what were just want to just come to your mind when I ask that question?
Well, the first thing that shows up for me as I hear your question is I actually surrendered. I mean, I got mad, but I was accustomed to doing that.
Right.
But it was something different about it. Now, I'm not validating him as a white man or anything, but it was at the point in my life where he spoke and I heard it days later, right? But in all fairness, I was asked out anyway. Like I had nothing going on. And it was at that point where it was only one way to come, and that was back up. Now, what I consider to be on top, but I was really destitute. Like I was at the point where I just told myself, what is it that you still have that you can lose at this point outside of your life?
Yeah.
And so because I had nothing else to lose, I had everything to gain.
Yeah.
So I heard it distant, like it resonated. I really listened to my intuition, and it was like, this is it for you. And it was at that point, but I was already in the valley. I was already hopeless and helpless. At least I felt I was at the time.
Sure.
Right. So part of my journey was A, giving me something to do, and B, just pushing through with, I actually had no other alternatives at the time.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I like it. Sometimes you get put, we get put in those positions where you ain't got nothing else. And I think those are sometimes the best times when there needs to be a turnaround. Not if it doesn't need to be. If it don't need to be there, we need to talk something else. But that's definitely a good spot. So let's jump into it because I'm really interested in this as well. Like I said, I got so many questions. I open for you to death. But
it's all good, man.
The number one question I have is what are some of the mistakes? So when you deal with coaches and consultants, people who serve other people at a high level, and we're talking high ticket coaches and clients, so they're serious. Their job is to bring that transformation. For you, what are three things that the mistakes that they're probably making when it deals with their own mental, emotional, and wellness, that health aspect? What are some of the things you've seen over the years?
Well, with people who function in coaching, consulting capacities, one of the things that I find that's pretty standard is um, they move really fast, right?
Yeah.
Most of them live a highly functioning life where they're not convinced that calmness is their superpower, right? They think that they could act their way into feeling better, and that's not how emotions work. Mostly highly functioning people, especially the ones who've accumulated some financial success, they're highly emotionally illiterate as well, right? They haven't slowed down enough to really tap into their feelings, let alone how emotions work, right? And so the three things that I ask coaches and consultants and highly functioning people to do is to slow down, increase their breath work, right? And really, really develop a regimen where they could start off with taking great care of themselves, either first thing in the morning or late at night, long before they let the outside world come in.
Okay.
Right? So in other words, no, do not grab your phone for the first hour, for example. Right?
Okay.
Even if you got kids, even if, like, that first hour is dedicated strictly for you. You cannot give what you don't already possess. So instead of looking for something externally to validate you, there's some things that you can do in the very first hour after you slumber. And so we co-create a program where they can start vibrating differently, where they could use their intuition, their gut, and not their trauma or trigger responses to sort of get the bread or get that bag, right? And so I help them on becoming emotionally literate, and that usually adds a piece in their personal development that changes how they run their businesses and therefore their lives.
Love it, love it, love it. So first thing when we wake up, an hour to ourselves, no phone. But I'll say like this: I use my phone for my Bible app, so or to play my worship music or whatever. So I may have to look at a different way of going about it. I may have to go back to the physical book. So that's one thing that they can do. What are two more things, or two things that you see the mistakes that they're making? What are the two other mistakes that that they actually do unconsciously? Because it's not like we just do it to do it, right?
Right. So we think that humanistically we don't like feeling bad, right? None of us. So when we feel bad, we actually think there's something to do in order to prevent us from feeling bad.
Okay.
Right? We think there's a behavior to do. For example, now it may be something temporarily that can soothe you or numb you, but it doesn't allow you to manage your reactions to your emotions because we haven't been taught that. So I offer coaches and consultants, when you're feeling bad, if you could practice how to remain calm when you're feeling bad, your life will change. And there's a number of ways to do that. The first thing to do is, say you wake up or a client don't come through, a deal don't go through, you immediately get the stimuli in, you're feeling bad. Here comes the feeling. When the feelings come, we add those thoughts, that narrative to it.
Right.
Right. Once we add the thoughts, we propel those feelings. Once those feelings start to emote, here come the emotions. Once we into full emotions, we cannot slam on the brakes to make it go away. We have to let emotions die down. So most of us have been trained to do something or not do something to prevent the pain of feeling uncomfortable. We haven't been taught to sit back, breathe. Now in kindergarten, first, second grade, coaches, if you're an athlete, we've heard, take a deep breath, relax, right? Just kind of calm yourself. We miss that when we become these high functioning people. So the second thing I ask people to do is slow down. When you're feeling heavy, check in, turn your voice off, sit still, and be with the feelings. That's first. Second thing, identify that feeling. What is it? It may be anger as a default, but there's a lot of things go on before we get angry. Angry. There's frustration. There's irritation. Right. Sadness feels like anger. Madness feels like anger. Right. Anger is our default as a people.
Right.
We go to angry, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
most. Depression feels like anger. Trauma, guilt, shame, all that feels like anger. For one
Mm-hmm.
reason, we don't like feeling bad.
Right.
So I tell people to do, if you could sit still
Mm-hmm.
and breathe, that means become present, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I usually take 3-5 sets of 10 deep breaths. Physically watch your body calm.
Mm.
If you could retrain your nervous system to
Mm-hmm.
trust you and you trust it, you can take the next inspired action. I know this is a lot, but I'm gonna
No,
bring
this
it
is
home.
good. This is good.
Right? And so when you calm yourself, right,
Mm-hmm.
you can take the next inspired action as opposed to the reaction to trying to not feel as bad as you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all the nervous system needs to do is to prove to you that it can feel a little better with your influence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you're not at the mercy of feeling bad. You actually have
Mm.
more control than you may
I
realize.
like that.
And the first thing to do is to sit tight.
Okay.
Somebody say something happen, you just turn your voice off. Our voices do more good for our humans.
Mm-hmm.
Other human beings, they don't work that well for us.
Mm.
No, I say our voices that make us successful, pay
Yeah.
all our bills, is the very voice that we use to cause self-destruction, bullying, and a lot of other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially us good talking folks, right?
Yeah. Charismatic.
Right. So I tell people, stop talking so much.
Yeah.
Right? Be comfortable in solitude and silence.
Mm.
So turn your phone off, increase your breath work, turn your voice off. Allow yourself, those three things allow you to get present to how you're feeling. Feelings come up, ask yourself, what is it I'm feeling?
Yeah.
You mad? Why? Oh, I'm not real mad, I'm disappointed. Oh, I'm not, that's not disappointed, I'm irritated.
Mm.
Oh, that's not it. Like, really check in. And there's some things that we could do to get to that point. But those are some basic things that we could do, not only in the morning, but throughout the course of the day.
I love it. So you definitely got, I got some questions on, I'm always, I think this is not just a general statement. I imagine this is true across the board, that we're not always aware, right? Because I got to get that bag, or I got a call coming up, or I got to come up with a new training. So we're always in the future. What are some of the things, or what can we do? What is the one thing that can bring awareness to a coach and to a consultant? Because even though we do our personal development work, even though we read in our books, it's a means to another end. But what is that piece that we can do to say, you know what, I'm off track, I need to get back on track?
Right. Great question. It goes back to the same one. Spending time to be still on a regular, right? Yeah. Just whenever that is. For me, it's the morning, maybe an afternoon. Like, really spending time. But keep in mind that all of that energy and eagerness is stored in the body, right? We justify, rationalize it in the mind. We haven't been taught how to really be with ourselves on the inside, where all the magic and the damage takes place. If we can slow down, right? Most of the things that we are forcing is just that, force, right? We typically force things outside of us because we don't understand the power we have on the inside, right?
Break that down a little bit.
Right?
That's interesting. Hold on. I don't want you to cut. I didn't mean to cut you off. But what
no
is
problem,
that?
No problem.
Yeah. What is that?
So force means there's something we think we can deliberately do to control a dynamic or change a particular trajectory. Okay. We don't get the power of calmness. We don't get the power of intuition. We don't get that, right? Because we live in a patriarchal capitalist society. You got to do stuff to get stuff, right? Right. We don't realize that most of the construction of where all of us are originated in us, on the inside.
Yes.
Right? On the inside. And so we kind of neglect that part.
Yeah.
Right? We don't get the personal power that we have. I'll give you an example. Whenever I go into a situation where I think I need to force something, right? Force something. Business-wise, I do that same energy and take it into physical fitness, right? Okay. So whenever I have the urge to kind of man something, use force, I take it out at the gym. Right? It allows me to circulate the energy and get in shape and, manage my emotions at the same time.
Sure.
Because there's certain things that only require us to go with ease. For example, like what me and you doing, right? Yeah. Being present, taking time, listening and things. I think just as people, we're just in too big of a rush trying to achieve and get somewhere. People who have had near-death experiences or had to lay up and be bedridden for something, they get what it means to slow down by force.
Right.
People who've been in jail, like they get, like when you forced to lay down, you're like, oh, shucks.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking people to build that in on their own free will, just slowing down.
Man.
Just slow down.
Now, do you have a book on this?
I got a few books out there that speaks to it.
Okay. All right. We're going to talk about how they can get those books later on. So, and not to keep too much of your time here, but one last question. Man, listen, when I say we'll be on here for like 4 or 5 hours, don't play. I promise you I get busy like this because it's like water to me. It's like, really? Oh,
I get it. We ain't been on that long, man.
No, not at all. I keep it 20, 30 minutes.
Been that long.
Yeah, 20, 30 minutes. We may have to do a part 2 with the conversation. So I wanted to kind of dig into your side of the table. So we've talked about our side. From your side of the table, what has been a aha moment that you would share with coaches and consultants?
That's a good question. From my side, aha moment.
I mean, because let's say you talk to so many, you're like, man, this is a commonality, or this was surprising. I didn't foresee this. What has been one of those moments you was like, wow, okay, that's interesting.
That all of us are overcoming some form of trauma with no exceptions, right? Mm-hmm. And that the best gift that we can give to ourselves is managing who we are emotionally, right? Mm-hmm. It's the emotional work that really makes the difference, raising our children, our careers, and all that. And we just don't, even the people who've gotten a glimpse of it, because this whole it's mostly emotional wellness as opposed to mental health, as you described at the beginning of this segment, right? And so the aha moment for me is learning about my emotionality. Right, I read enough books. I done did all our stuff that really slowing down, checking in. How does emotions work? How does my emotions work? Right, things of that nature. How do you finish an emotion? Like once I got this emotion game, it changed not only my life, but it freed me up and knocking my head against some walls professionally that just wasn't working.
Yeah,
like for real, right? And so the aha moment is this all emotional. Right? All behaviors in action are predicated with some underlying emotion.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it is subconscious and unconscious, but it's there.
Right.
And young people get it though, right? Now, all of us, older folks, we got our lived experience, we got our history, we got to peel back some layers. Yeah. Young folks, they be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they can immediately put it into action to see for themselves.
Yeah.
Older folks with some skin in the game, they try to rationalize. They try to replace emotions with logic and reasoning.
Man, I'm about to buy all your books. I'm loving it, man. Talking with Dr. Curt here on the LVTV podcast. We're not going to keep it because I don't want you guys. We got to do a part 2 and a part 3.
Okay.
And so many
Let's
more.
do it.
But I don't want to keep the conversation too long for the listener perspective. But man, this has been, if you enjoy this podcast episode, whether you're listening or watching, and you enjoyed it, make sure you share this. I want you to do me a huge favor. If I've ever done anything for you in life that's been a blessing to you, take this episode and share it with that one person who you know would benefit from it. Right now, they may be struggling. They may have, having a tough time turning the ship around. They haven't been getting clients, or they're overwhelmed, whatever it may be. If you know one person who can benefit from even one thing said, I want you to take the link, share it with them, send it as a text message and say, hey, take a listen to this. And I think they'll be blessed by it. So before we leave here, Dr. Curt, I got to ask, is there anything else you would like to share with the people, and where can we get the books, and how can we get in contact with you?
Good. I just want to thank you, man, for taking the time out. I mean, obviously this is a serious area. I think brothers like us need to do more sharing of this. So I appreciate the opportunity. For me, it's just life changing. I ask everybody, man, regardless of whether you living a great life or not, really find out what's going on, more about you on the inside, right? That's the difference maker. And you can find me on all social mediums. I am Dr. Curt on Instagram. A Google search will pull me up. Dr. Curtis D. Jasper on Facebook and Twitter. My books are on Amazon, or you can go to www.drcurtisdjasper.com. I hang out in them online streets pretty regularly, so I ain't hard to find for one reason. Like you, I'm just trying to do my part and contributing to the culture in a positive way in an area that I know has really, really blessed my life and turned things around for me.
Hey, man, there it is, y'all. Boom. Make sure y'all check him out. Follow him. I have all those links and all that information down in the show notes to this podcast. And again, this is the LVTV podcast where we talk all things content, clients, and cash flow for the profit and impact focused coaches and consultants. Until the next episode, continue to be social on social media. Appreciate it.